A quiet Tuesday afternoon sun hovered over the small American town of Maple Ridge, painting everything a warm shade of gold as the engines of 10 parked motorcycles cooled outside Rusty Jack's diner. Inside, the bikers, big men with bigger beards and loud laughs, sat in their usual booth, a group known around town as the Iron Wolves. Despite their intimidating leather jackets and booming voices, everyone who knew them knew their hearts were softer than their steel machines. At the center of the group sat Hawk, the broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed man whose leadership the others followed without question. He was respected in town not because of his strength, but because of his loyalty. If he said he had your back, you believed him. As they joked and teased and planned their weekend charity ride, none of them knew their day was about to turn into something far more serious and meaningful than any ride they'd taken before. Outside, a small figure darted down the sidewalk, bare feet slapping the pavement, tiny arms pumping through the air, chest heaving with frantic breaths. It was a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, wearing an oversized pink t-shirt as dirty as her scraped knees. Her blonde hair stuck to her tear-streaked face as she stumbled toward the diner. She looked over her shoulder once, panic twisting her features, before she ran straight toward the row of bikes like she knew exactly who she was looking for. The girl didn't hesitate. She sprinted through the diner doors so fast they slammed into the wall, making everyone inside jump. The sudden silence was thick, but she didn't stop to catch her breath. She ran straight to the first table she saw with leather jackets and tattoos and boots heavy enough to crush a brick. She stopped in front of Hawk and gasped out the words that would freeze every biker in place. "He's coming," she cried, voice shrill with terror. "Please, please help me. He's coming." Her eyes were wild, arms shaking violently, her whole small body trembling as if she expected someone to burst through the doors any second. Hawk immediately stood, his large frame towering over her, but his voice dropped gentle as soft gravel. "Slow down, sweetheart. Who's coming?" The girl gulped a breath, tears spilling over. "My stepdad," she sobbed. He's angry again. I ran. He said he'd hurt me worse if I told anyone. But I didn't know where else to go. People said bikers protect people. Please don't let him take me back." Her words broke apart at the end, dissolving into hiccuping sobs. The entire diner felt like the air had been sucked out. Even the cook behind the counter set down his spatula and stepped closer. None of the bikers said a word, but their faces hardened in a silent, unanimous decision. Hawk crouched down to meet her eyes. "What's your name, little one?" "Lily," she whispered, wiping her face with trembling fingers. "Lily, you did the right thing coming to us," Hawk said. "I promise you, no one's going to hurt you again." Right then, as if summoned by her fear, a truck screeched to a stop outside. Heavy boots stomped across the pavement. The diner windows rattled under the force of furious fists pounding against the glass as a red-faced man with a beer gut and wild eyes shouted, "Lily! You get out here right now!" The bikers didn't even look at one another. They didn't need to. They moved as one. Hawk straightened slowly, his expression turning stone cold as he stepped between Lily and the front door. Behind him, every member of the Iron Wolves rose from their seats, leather creaking, boots thudding, a wall of muscle and silent fury. The man stormed inside, mouth already open to scream something vile, but he froze when he saw who was standing in front of him. 10 bikers, 10 glares, 10 reminders that real strength didn't need shouting. The man's bravado flickered, but he tried to puff his chest anyway. "She's my kid," he snarled, though his voice wavered. "She comes with me." Hawk stepped closer, towering over him. "Not today," he said, voice low enough to make the diner's windows vibrate. "Not ever again if you're laying hands on her. You got no proof." The man barked, but fear flashed behind his eyes. "That's where you're wrong," came a voice from the corner. Everyone turned to see the elderly waitress, Martha, holding up her phone. "I've been recording since you stepped out of that truck. And I've seen that girl run to town crying before. We all have. Enough is enough." The man cursed and lunged for Lily, an action so reckless and desperate that it sealed his fate. The bikers surged forward like a wave of thunder. They didn't strike him. Hawk had strict rules about that, but they surrounded him so tightly he couldn't even lift his arms without bumping into a leather wall. "Sit," Hawk ordered, and he did, not because he wanted to, but because 10 men radiating controlled fury made defiance impossible. Martha called the sheriff. It took 15 minutes for him to arrive, but it felt like hours for Lily, who sat wrapped in Hawk's leather jacket, tucked safely at the back of the diner where the owner kept giving her warm apple pie she was too shaken to eat. When Sheriff Dalton arrived, he looked at Lily, then at the man handcuffed on the curb, then at the surrounding bikers, and everything clicked into place. The sheriff had been suspicious for months but never had solid evidence. Now he had witnesses, recordings, and a traumatized child who finally felt safe enough to speak. The stepfather was taken away shouting and spitting, but no one listened. The moment the sheriff's car disappeared down the road, Lily's small body sagged like all her strength had drained out at once. Hawk approached her again, slower this time, so he wouldn't startle her. She looked up at him, eyes swollen, cheeks blotchy, breath uneven. "Am I really safe now?" she whispered. "Yes," he said, "you're safe." But the way she flinched at distant car noises told him safety was a word she'd never truly understood. And suddenly Hawk felt something he hadn't felt since his own daughter died years ago in a car accident, a fierce, protective instinct that wrapped around his heart like barbed wire and refused to let go. The sheriff returned inside with a gentle expression. "Lily," he said softly, "we'll take you to the station for now, find a temporary home for you. A safe one. I don't want to go somewhere alone," she whimpered, clinging to Hawk's jacket. The sheriff looked at Hawk, a silent question in his eyes. Hawk swallowed. His life wasn't built for kids. He rode a motorcycle. He lived alone. He wasn't exactly the bedtime story type. But he also knew what it meant to lose someone you loved. And he knew what it meant to need someone, anyone, to stay. He kneeled again and said, "Lily, if you want, I can stay with you until you feel safe. I won't leave you alone." She didn't answer. She just threw her arms around his neck and sobbed into his shoulder. The sheriff cleared his throat. "Well, temporary guardianship is a thing," he murmured. And that was how Hawk, leader of the Iron Wolves, a man who once believed his heart had stopped healing the day his daughter died, ended up driving slowly in a police cruiser beside a little girl who held his hand with a grip strong enough to shatter what remained of his emotional armor. That night, Hawk stayed with her through questions, paperwork, social workers, and fear-filled explanations. He stayed until her breathing softened in the guest room at a safe foster home. He stayed even after she fell asleep, because the idea of leaving her alone in the dark felt wrong. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Lily's bruises faded, but the deeper wounds, the fear of slammed doors, raised voices, sudden footsteps, took longer. Through it all, Hawk showed up. Every visiting hour, every scheduled meeting, every school orientation, he taught her how to ride a tiny bicycle without training wheels. She braided beads into his beard. He kept one of the beads tucked there even during long motorcycle rides. The Iron Wolves unofficially adopted her, too, showing up at school events, sitting in the back quietly so she felt safe, cheering louder than any crowd. And slowly, under their protection, Lily bloomed. She laughed more. She slept easier. She drew pictures of motorcycles and sunsets and big men with kind eyes. One afternoon, after nearly a year had passed, Lily sat beside Hawk on the curb outside the diner where they first met. She swung her legs back and forth, humming under her breath. "Hawk," she said softly, "yeah, kiddo, do you think I could stay with you forever?" His breath caught. He had been thinking it for months, but hearing it from her made his chest tighten. "If that's what you want," he said. "More than anything," she whispered. And just like that, the man who once believed fate had taken away his chance to be a father found himself signing adoption papers 2 weeks later with trembling hands and misty eyes. The day it became official, the Iron Wolves threw a celebration bigger than some weddings. Lily wore a leather vest with a custom patch on the back that read, "Wolf Pup." She showed it to everyone with glowing pride. Hawk lifted her onto his bike, carefully, slowly, securely. "Ready, kiddo?" he asked. "Ready," she said, and as they rode down the highway together, wind rushing through their hair, sun warming their faces, and the Iron Wolves thundering behind them, Lily closed her eyes and felt, truly felt, safe, loved, and home at last. Because in a world full of people who choose to walk away, she ran toward the only ones who ran toward her. And they didn't just protect her that day. They changed her life. And she changed theirs. Forever.